was one of the finest people that ever lived. He had more integrity. He was a much better person than myself.
Wow.
And he was so controlled.
Yes, he was.
He never drank too much, never ate too much. He just was a very
straight as
stable,
straight as an arrow.
great person. And you could depend on him. You could have put your life in his hands and he would have done everything just the way it was supposed to be. You've read those things that the post office wrote about him when he got his.
No, I've never seen
Oh,
those.
your mom has a couple.
Yeah,
They used to give a $500 bonus for a superior performance award, and the boss would write it all up. And he could case up and deliver 2 routes and still get off on time. There was nothing he couldn't do.
Right.
He's tall. Oh, yeah, he's tall.
He was always very quiet unless he was annoyed at those dinners.
Still had like a full grandparent relationship. Like I didn't think of him as like an old man until he was like.
And even though he was like very supportive, he was also very like a trickster sometimes. Like when he was teaching me to drive, he thought it was very fun to take me down like Carkey Park where it's like really windy. And it was like one of the first times we gone out and I was like, this is terrible. And he was just like cracking up. And Grant was always at the head of the table, which was also like one of the hardest places to get out of. And so part of that I think was like, he didn't want to like have to deal with people. And if he was at the table, he could just like focus on the immediate around him. And I mean, Will, like he would go on the bus with Will and like, he used to go to Granddad everything. And, you know, this is before really texting, so it was just all verbal. And Granddad was just like, yeah, sure, just and yeah, he never got frustrated or yeah, he was just always really good with Will.
Well, and Will, it's kind of funny even to now, like Will treats him like he's a celebrity, you know, like.
Well, I think they're a little bit like peas from the same pod.
Yeah.
Like, they had a lot in common, and
They like going to do stuff. I mean, Granddad walked his entire life, so I think he always like just.
yeah, they both were on the go.
I admired that about Granddad. We would go to like museums a lot. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of
I
crazy.
know it's funny because like all the stories I have are like very like inconsequential, but like he was the one who picked me up when I was sick constantly in school, or like he took me to school every day and in high school. And I remember there was one time it was when Natalie and I were still going to school together, and I was like, no, I'm fine, like I'm not sick. He's like, okay. And so he drove both of us all the way to school, and I was like, you were right, I'm sick. And I had to like go back home with him, and it was like, that's fine.
It's nuts. I can't imagine doing that much work as a grandparent. Like we were such little shits, you know.
Smart person. He was only in the Air Corps 2 years, but he made sergeant in that time. If he'd have stayed in the military, he would have been a fabulous high up officer.
Yeah, he would have.
What were his hobbies when he was younger? Did he have any side interests?
Oh yeah, once he built a complete radio, overseas shortwave radio.
Whoa.
From a kid. But then he wasn't real talkative, so he never really used it. He just liked the building of it. And he had some saws, he made a lot of things. He made a dining room table once and then a card table to match. And he used to do that kind of stuff. He could have done a lot more if we could have afforded a lot more. But he did very well with what he had. He could fix just about anything. my grandfather lived with us a lot of the time. And he thought that if that feller can't fix it, it can't be fixed. He thought the world of him. And my brothers did too. When they were old, they had their legs amputated. One had diabetes, my brother George. And Dad would just pick him up in his arms and put him in the car and take him to the doctor or whatever. And my brother Bob too. He was in a wheelchair. And they just trusted him. Didn't trust other people. If you have to be carried, you want somebody
You
you
trust,
can
yeah.
And he was the most trustworthy person I've ever known. He was a good guy.